Imagine a time long before our own, a time of unimaginable violence and spectacle. Our Earth, a newborn planet, was not the gentle, blue world we know today. It was a seething sphere of molten rock, a world constantly bombarded by asteroids and comets, remnants from the chaotic birth of our solar system. The air was a toxic mixture of gases, thick and unbreathable. There were no soothing blue oceans, no green continents, no whisper of wind through trees. There was only the roar of volcanoes and the hiss of superheated steam. For millions upon millions of years, this celestial furnace slowly began to cool. A thin, fragile crust formed over the molten core like a delicate skin on cooling lava. And then, the rains began. It was a downpour of truly epic proportions, a deluge that lasted not for days or weeks but for thousands of years. Slowly, water began to pool in the vast, scarred basins of the young Earth. It filled the craters in the deep valleys, creating the first primitive oceans. These were not the clear, life-filled seas we might picture. Within those warm, primeval oceans, something extraordinary was happening. The water was not merely water, it was a rich chemical broth. It contained simple molecules, compounds of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen. These were the fundamental building blocks of life. Delivered to Earth by comets or forged in the intense energy of volcanic vents and lightning storms. For countless millennia, these simple molecules drifted and swirled in the oceanic currents. They were constantly being energized, zapped by lightning, irradiated by the sun, and cooked in the hydrothermal vents that peppered the ocean floor. Slowly, driven by the relentless input of energy, these simple molecules began to link together. They formed more complex structures like amino acids and nucleotides, the very Lego bricks from which all living things are constructed. At some point, one of these complex molecules, perhaps a strand of RNA, developed a remarkable new ability. It could make copies of itself. This was the spark, the moment that inanimate matter crossed the threshold into life. The first living things to grace our planet were not mighty beasts or towering trees. They were far humbler. They were microbes, single-celled organisms so small they are invisible to the naked eye. We call their earliest forms bacteria and archaea. They were exquisitely simple, little more than a tiny package of genetic material and cellular machinery wrapped in a protective membrane. Yet, within their simplicity lay a profound strength and an astonishing capacity for survival. They evolved to breathe other materials, drawing energy from the sulfur, iron, and hydrogen sulfide that were abundant in the early oceans. In this process of endless replication, tiny errors would sometimes occur, mutations that occasionally provided a slight advantage. Over hundreds of millions of years, these microscopic champions diversified. They spread across the entire globe, filling every available niche in the primordial seas. They formed vast slimy mats, which we can still see today as fossilized structures called stromatolites. The single greatest innovation achieved by these early life forms was a process that would change the world forever. One group of bacteria, known as cyanobacteria, evolved a revolutionary new way to harness energy. They developed the ability to perform photosynthesis. As a waste product, photosynthesis releases a gas, oxygen. For nearly all other life on Earth at the time, oxygen was a lethal poison. As these cyanobacteria thrived and multiplied, they began pumping vast quantities of this toxic gas into the oceans and eventually into the atmosphere. But life, as it always does, adapted. Some microbes evolved the ability to not only tolerate oxygen, but to use it. This new process, aerobic respiration, was vastly more efficient at releasing energy from food than any method that had come before. The impact of these tiny photosynthetic pioneers is almost impossible to overstate. They terraformed an entire planet. They created the oxygen-rich atmosphere that we and all other animals depend upon for every breath we take. When we look back across the vast expanse of geological time, it is easy to be awed by the dinosaurs or the mammoths. But the true unsung heroes of our planet's story are these first, simple cells. Their legacy is not just in the world around us, but also within us. The basic cellular machinery in our own bodies, the way our cells process energy, has its roots in the metabolic pathways first invented by these ancient microbes. Their story is a powerful reminder of the tenacity and resilience of life. Their journey from a chemical soup to a living, breathing biosphere is the greatest story of triumph against the odds that has ever been told. So the next time you take a deep breath, pause for a moment. Think of the cyanobacteria in a long-lost ocean, releasing those first precious bubbles of oxygen. We are the inheritors of their 4 billion-year-old legacy, the current champions of a journey that began in darkness and brought forth a world of light and life. Subscribe to Scientific Spectrum.